Honeybees are capable of working with numbers. This conclusion was reached by researchers from Monash University, who revisited a long-standing scientific debate. Earlier, some scientists argued that insects do not perceive numbers directly. Instead, they believed bees respond to visual features such as density or the texture of patterns. The new study shows that this interpretation was incomplete. In previous experiments, bees were trained to choose between images with different numbers of elements. For example, they had to select between 2 and 3 objects, or between 4 and 5. When they made the correct choice, they received a reward in the form of sugar solution. Over time, the insects learned to consistently select the correct option. One of the most important tests involved the concept of zero. Bees that were trained to choose the smaller number were presented with a choice between a blank card and a card containing a single object. In these situations, the insects reliably chose the empty card. This behavior suggested that they were not simply reacting to visual patterns, but were actually perceiving numerical differences. However, these results were later criticized. Some researchers proposed that bees were not responding to the number of objects at all. Instead, they might have been using spatial frequency. This refers to how dense or fine a visual pattern appears. Images with more elements naturally have higher spatial frequency, and this could have served as a cue. The new study addressed this criticism by examining how bees actually see the world. The researchers found that earlier analyses contained a methodological flaw. Low spatial frequencies had been removed from the images used in the analysis, even though bees are able to detect them. When the scientists adjusted the analysis to match the real properties of bee vision, the supposed link between the number of objects and visual patterns disappeared. In other words, from the perspective of the bee, visual cues, such as density, no longer explain their choices. This finding is crucial. It means that bees are not relying on secondary visual features. Instead, they are responding to the actual number of objects. Their behavior reflects a basic form of numerical processing. Further experiments confirmed this conclusion. Bees can distinguish quantities up to 6. They are also able to understand relationships such as more and less. Most notably, they can grasp the concept of zero. In humans, this ability typically develops in early childhood, around the age of 3 to 4. These cognitive abilities may have practical value in the natural environment. Researchers suggest that bees could use numerical skills to evaluate flowers, for example, by counting petals or identifying plants that offer more resources. The study highlights a broader point about how scientists interpret animal intelligence. To understand how other species think, it is essential to consider how they perceive the world. If human assumptions are applied without adjustment, conclusions can be misleading. In this case, taking into account the visual system of bees changed the interpretation entirely. What once appeared to be a simple reaction to patterns turned out to be evidence of numerical understanding. The results show that even small brains can support surprisingly complex forms of cognition.